In today's video, I'll be going over Brendan Schaub and Bryan Callen's response to the H3 podcast featuring Bobby Lee and Khalyla. If you aren't familiar with the drama up until this point, go check out my recap video where I talk about some of the lead up to that podcast and what was actually said on that podcast. But if you are already up to speed, let's get right into Bryan Callen and Brendan Schaub's response on today's The Fighter and the Kid podcast.
I'm calling this podcast The Hammer of Truth. I'm going to start this off by saying a couple of things. I believe when chaos hits, you tell the truth. I've always been honest with everybody, all the fans and everybody who listens. Bobby Lee is somebody I love very much. But people have been talking. He went online and he went on and talked about somebody who spoke to him in a very rough, bullying manner. That wasn't anybody but me. I'm the guy. I'm the one who did it. Not Chris, not Theo, not Sam, it was me, yeah. Okay? Bobby is 100% right in his anger at me, in how he felt, and I'm 100% wrong. I take full fucking responsibility. Where I was wrong was this. I didn't give Bobby the benefit of the doubt. I didn't ask him first. I didn't really give him the respect to say, hey, dude, is what I'm seeing true?
So right off the top here, I do have to say props to Bryan Callen for owning up to this and saying that he was wrong to call out Bobby Lee and to be so aggressive. And yeah, he really took the lead from the beginning in apologizing to Bobby Lee. Now, I don't love that he wanted to call this episode The Hammer of Truth because I do feel like a lot of truth came out in the H3 podcast. And with that said, let's continue on.
This had nothing to do with you and the Khalyla thing.
Hold on real quick, with the timeline, with the Khalyla stuff and then what you're going to refer to, you're looking about 3 to 5 weeks difference.
I didn't know that for 6 years you've been getting crazy, not just hate. There is a difference, guys, between making fun of somebody and threats. Physical threats against somebody's family, interference in someone's business and trying to destroy someone's business. There is a very big difference between real threats and just hate, people making videos. That's all good. Yeah, that's all good, dude.
No, that's the internet.
That's the internet. So what happens, guys, is when you have a legal matter, when it becomes actually physically dangerous, we're talking about actual illegal activity.
Correct.
So what you do in that situation after 6 years, when it gets crazy and scary, is you hire professional legal counsel and professionals to deal with this.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I'm gonna let Brendan finish, but I had to jump in and comment on this portion of their response, which starts with Bryan mentioning that his involvement in this situation had nothing to do with the Khalyla part, where she was getting hit on by Brendan, and that his involvement was specifically about the harassment that Brendan had been receiving online. And he explains some of this harassment without getting into many details, but essentially saying that it is a criminal amount of harassment. And now I'm sure some of you have caught on to this, but at this point in the video, we haven't heard any kind of apology from Brendan at all. It really has been Bryan doing most of the talking, with Brendan chipping in here and there and really not adding that much value, which is kind of typical, to be fair, but I was hoping to maybe get more of an apology from Brendan himself, since he really is the central figure in all of this. And Bryan, he got caught in the crossfire after that H3 podcast, so the silence from Brendan is really starting to speak some words here to me, and I would like to hear Brendan maybe take some responsibility and apologize for the things that have happened here, but we haven't heard that up until this point, so let's continue on to see if we do hear any type of apology from Brendan.
So obviously I don't talk about the negative stuff. I always look at life as the glass half full. Always. It's just my nature, and I know that stuff is out there, and I've always been privy to ignore it. Obviously, especially the way I look and having the careers that I've had, it's going to trigger people, and I get all that. I 100% get all that. But then it gets to a certain point when they step over the boundaries of criticism.
Well, when it gets to your physical safety,
correct,
and your family's physical safety.
But that for sure, but then also going after my businesses, companies I'm associated with, then you're talking about illegal activity.
He talks about being half glass full, and I get it. It's good to be positive. Then he goes on to talk about how his appearance makes people hate on him, and there's also some truth in that, but it really isn't relevant to any of this because a lot of the issues that have risen up recently have nothing to do with his looks and all to do with the things that he's done. And again, still not an ounce of responsibility or accountability from Brendan Schaub here. He's still just trying to keep his image squeaky clean and paint himself as a victim.
I constantly surround myself with smarter people. My business manager, my agents, my managers. Being a stand-up comic, it's so tough. So my energy goes to that and my kids. That's it, man. Yes. For me to get notified that some illegal activity is going on, it has to be so bad to the point that this account got alerted. I know I'm 6'4", 250 pounds. I know I look like this stuff doesn't bother me. It hurts my feelings, man. It always has. I don't talk about it.
Yeah. Harassment is bad, okay? I'm not saying that Brendan Schaub doesn't get harassed online, but reading between the lines here, it feels like what he's saying is that his smarter people that he surrounded himself with, like his managers, his agents, his legal team, they came to the conclusion that this was Bobby Lee leading the charge on this harassment. And now that we know this isn't the case, what do those smarter people think? How did they come to this conclusion that Bobby Lee was responsible for all of this harassment that, based on this clip, really crushed Brendan Schaub once he was made aware of it? Why didn't Brendan Schaub maybe go to Bobby Lee directly if it was bothering him that much? Now, as a viewer, I might be missing some context because I'm obviously not Brendan Schaub, but these are just some questions that come to mind. Now, after this period where he does a lot of the talking, we go back to Bryan Callen and get a little bit more perspective from him as to why he was so angry and what really made him call Bobby Lee to begin with.
So when I saw the evidence, there is long-term harassment, more than just hate, coming from X, Y, Z. I didn't make this stuff up. When I saw with my own eyes that some of that long-term harassment was coming from the Tiger Belly hub, I went into protection mode. I saw red and I assumed the worst about Bobby and about Khalyla. After speaking to Bobby, I realized, I really believe that he has nothing to do with it. I don't think he even knows anything about it. Then you spoke to Khalyla and you called me right away and you said, dude, I believe her. I don't think Khalyla or Bobby have anything to do with this. So then what I did was I called Bobby, he didn't answer. I called him the next day, he didn't answer, and I got it. I was like, he must be so pissed off at me. Because once again, let me say this. The way I spoke to Bobby is unacceptable. And he said something to me that I'll never forget. He said, I've been bullied by guys like you my whole life, and it stops now.
And again, props to Bryan Callen for taking ownership here and apologizing to Bobby Lee for his aggressiveness in that phone call. And it really does just seem like he was misled for whatever reason. Something that I'm confused about here is when he said that the harassment came from the Tiger Belly hub. I really want to know what he means by that. Like, is he literally talking about the Tiger Belly subreddit, or is he talking about IP addresses in the Tiger Belly house, like what was alluded to in the H3 podcast? And also, who actually tipped off Bryan Callen about this whole situation? It must have been either Brendan Schaub himself or some of the smart people that he has been surrounding himself with. And in either case, I feel like Brendan needs to take at least some responsibility here. These are some questions that I still have that would definitely help bring some further clarification to this whole situation. And the only other real piece of info that we get from this podcast is that Brendan Schaub might make an appearance on the Tiger Belly podcast to further discuss this entire situation. And if he does, I'll be very interested to tune in and see if there's any other info that might come out of that. But for the purpose of this video, I really just wanted to recap Brendan Schaub and Bryan Callen's response to the H3 podcast featuring Bobby Lee and Khalyla. So I think I've achieved that with this video. And if you enjoyed this recap, please be sure to like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And yeah, that's going to be it for me today. So take it easy, everybody. Peace.